guys, welcome to my channel. So today's video, I thought I would do a long haul flight kind of tips and hacks. And I've got some trips coming up this year, and I thought if you guys have got any holidays or you've never done a long haul flight before, maybe a bit nervous, not sure what to expect, I thought this would be really useful for you. So what I've done is I've broken it down into pre-flight kind of prep, during the flight, and then after the flight. So we'll get started with the pre-flight section first. And with this one, a few kind of, I guess, more common things would be to kind of get as much hydration before the flight, because you may or may not know when you're on a long haul flight with the altitude and everything, you can get quite dehydrated, and with the aircon and everything and the circulation of air, it's never great. It's never a good, particularly lush experience. So I do like to try and hydrate. And then also in line with that, I like to try and exercise, not too much, just to, you know, go for a swim or something, a nice light walk, just to kind of get your muscles going, because ultimately you're going to be sitting on a plane for like 24 hours in a few days time. So it's always good for your body. And I do often get quite bloated and quite swollen on flights, and I do find this helps as well with my circulation. And I mean, if you didn't want to do swimming or a jog, I often have a massage as well every week, so I do find having a massage does help with that as well. Now, with regards to kind of food on flights, I like to pre-book my meals in advance. I do have some dietary requirements, so this makes it easier for me. And also you will find if you book a pre-book a meal, a special meal on a flight, you will always be the ones that get your food and meals first, which may or may not work for you, but I really like it. It means I've got what I want, as in the kind of specific dietary requirement, and because you're getting it first, you can kind of get prepped, get ready. There's no chance of things running out, because quite often when you're on in economy and you're getting a food on flight, sometimes if it's a busy flight, there may be options that have run out by the time they get to your seat when they ask you. Whereas with a special meal, you've got that in advance, you know what you're getting, and you get the actual meals first before anyone else on the flight, which is great. I really love it. In regarding to pre-booking things as well, I also like to pre-book my seats in advance. Sometimes, depending on airlines, there may be an additional charge, and sometimes there may not be. I like to know where I'm sitting. I'm particularly an aisle seat person. I like to be able to get up and move, be mobile, not kind of disturb anyone on a long haul flight. That kind of works best for me. And I would say as well, if you like aisle seats, maybe get the middle section of the plane. So quite often there'll be like a seat of 4 in the middle, and there's 2 aisle seats. And that then means anyone that's in the middle of that section, they've got 2 ways of getting out. Whereas if you're in an aisle seat where there's a window and a middle seat and an aisle seat, anyone in the window and middle seat will have to go past you to get out. So that's not necessarily ideal, but that's something to think about when you're actually on the long haul flight. If you're someone that likes window seats, you like to just kind of sleep, chill out, not be disturbed, that's probably a good seat for you. I'm not quite sure who would go for the middle seat. I'm not a big fan of a middle seat on a flight personally. Like I say, I like the aisle seat. But also physically where you are in the plane, you may have a preference whether you're up front, whether you've got children you need to be near the bassinet. Also, if you've got any kind of medical condition or you want to be near the toilet, then obviously stipulate that. It just makes it easier for you and less anxiety and a nicer experience on the flight. But for me, I like aisle seats, and in that I'm happy to pay a bit extra and book the seat that I want, which is great, and I've never really had a problem. In regards to any other prep and food, I like to have snacks with me. So like I've mentioned earlier, I also have pre-booked meals that I do in advance, but I always bring my own snacks just in case maybe a flight's delayed or I've got the munchies or anything like that. I try not to have snacks that are too heavy on my stomach, again, for the flight. It could be things like nuts or just kind of picky bits. Again, be mindful of things like nuts. If anyone on the plane might have allergies, that's something to consider. But maybe just slow release snacks is nice. Also be mindful of where you're actually arriving to. There may be some biosecurity or strict rules on things you're bringing in. I know there is in New Zealand, so that's something to check in advance as well, if you are going to have things in your hand luggage that you might be eating or you don't actually end up eating for the duration of the trip, as for the flight. Then also a few other things I would recommend is prepping your devices. So before I fly, I often have a Mac or various other things, a camera, my phone. I like to charge everything up the night before. Also extra power packs, because you never quite know if you need anything. In regards to the prep as well, so for example, I like to print off hard copies of certain things, so maybe hard copy any kind of visas or anything that if my phone died or I couldn't get a signal. Digital is great for convenience, but just in case as that plan B, I like to have hard copies of a few things just in case, and I think that can be quite useful. Then also with the tech side of things, I have Netflix and various other, I listen to podcasts and things, and I do like to download, so I've got it offline, things like maps if I'm traveling to places I've not been to before, because when you get there, it's usually quite a lot of your data that you're using to access maps online. So I'll download the maps of the countries I'm going to offline. I will also download various videos, maybe off Netflix, and then also any podcasts that I want to listen to that could either be on the flight or during my trip. And also with regards to anything to do with your security, I have Apple AirTags that I put in my checked luggage. I always make sure I've got them in there. I also take a picture of my luggage, again, just in case anything gets damaged, anything gets lost. I can actually show exactly what my luggage is, and it just makes it a bit easier. And if, you know, God forbid anything happened, you've got that as well. And the AirTag I've used a few times now on trips, and I really love them. I think they're really, really useful. But I do put those in my checked luggage because they're physically not with me for the whole time. Also, with regards to all the tech I've got, depending on what countries you're going to, you may find you need different adapters, different types of things. So if I'm taking my straighteners, I need to have a converter, different adapters for that, for the countries that I'm going to. So it's always good to have a selection of adapters, or like one main adapter that convert multiple ones, which is really handy. And any kind of extra cables. I've also got noise cancelling headphones that I make sure is fully charged up before my flight. And depending on if you've got some as well, you often get the kind of converter that you put your headphones or connect it into the screen in front of you on your long haul flight. Just make sure you've got that, because quite often if you haven't got wireless and you need to charge it or connect it, you may not have the right end device. So I always pack that all in advance, which is great. I do find with the noise cancelling headphones that does eliminate a lot of noise as well, so that's a go-to that I always make sure I've charged. Then things like if you're going to a different country, I always like to check the roaming charges on my mobile. They may or may not apply, but it's always good to know, and it gives you the choice of whether if you are going to get charged, what you want to do, or in some cases you may not get charged for those countries. But either way, it's just reassuring to know in advance, and if you wanted to change that, you've still got enough time if you need to ring your mobile provider and just double check. So that generally helps. Also with things like I would say prepping. So before I'm going away, I do like to change things like my bedding. So when I know when I'm coming back, most likely potentially feeling quite exhausted, I know I've got fresh bedding on my bed. It's something that's just something that I've always done. It's just really nice. In turn, before I go away, I always like to have a few things in the freezer that if I land late at night or I'm just tired, obviously I don't necessarily want to be cooking or equally going out shopping. I like to have a few things in the freezer that I can quickly just grab and have to eat once I've arrived back. And I do think that's really important, and it just means it's one less thing you need to worry about. Then with regards to if you're traveling, again, long haul, the amount of luggage that you're taking. Me, I'm quite cautious. I like to weigh my luggage before I get to the airport, maybe the night before, check I'm still in line with the luggage allowance, which you'll know from individual airlines what your luggage allowance is. I don't like paying excess luggage. It's crazy expensive, and it's it's just not great. It's just a bit unnecessary. So for me, I always like to double check in advance, check that I'm in within limits, and it's all good. I also think as well, when I'm heading to the airport, a few things that I do take, I'll always take an empty reusable water bottle. So what I do is I will take the empty water bottle, I will go through security, be in departures. When I'm in departures, I will then refill my water bottle from the water fountain, which again is free, and then I'm good to go. It also makes sure I'm hydrated on the flight. So for the second section, which is during the flight, there's various things that I like to try and do as well, just to kind of make myself in the most kind of comfortable position and situation I can possibly be in. So I'll roll off a couple of things. Now, I mentioned earlier on about the noise cancelling headphones. I only recently got these about a year ago, and I'm kicking myself why I didn't get them earlier. Game changing, absolutely game changing, both for, you know, blocking out the white noise as such, the noise of the plane, being able to concentrate, and also being able to sleep. I actually sleep with the noise cancelling headphones on as well, which is brilliant. I do find, I think I've got the Sony ones, I'll put the details in the description bar below of the ones I've got, but so far the last year I've been using them loads, and in particular on flights. They do also come with their own case and the adapter that you connect directly to the kind of seat in front of you as well, which is really, really convenient. But I love them, absolutely swear by them. If you haven't got any, I totally, you know, would suggest investing in some. But I do find those overall, from my experience on the plane, is so much better. Also as well, I like to try and take things that I know I'm going to need. So things like a little blanket. I often get quite cold on flights. Just a little blanket I can kind of fold up, along with a neck pillow that I know is quite popular. I do quite like neck pillows that you can also convert into like a pillow. You can kind of break it down. I've had mine for years and it's super handy, and just more adaptable as well. It's not always going to be a neck pillow. I also find that when I spray the neck pillow or blanket, I'll usually have like a mist that I'll spray onto it, so maybe lavender. Again, that helps me relax, also helps me to sleep if I've got it around me. Obviously on flights, the temperature can change. I can suddenly get really hot or really cold. I do find wearing layers like this hoodie. I'll wear a hoodie with like a t-shirt underneath and maybe a small long sleeve top, so I can kind of change up the layers on the duration of the flight if I get too cold or too hot. Again, like I mentioned before, my legs can swell up, I can get quite swollen and uncomfortable, so I don't like clothing that's particularly tight or restricting, certainly when I'm sitting for long periods of time. So I'll maybe have joggers, just really, really comfortable. And just bearing in mind as well, obviously the airlines do recommend that you wear compression socks. That can help as well. And if you've got any medical complaints, it's probably best to check with your GP as well, any other kind of suggestions or recommendations. I know some of my friends take an aspirin just before, and that helps with kind of the blood flow. But again, always best to check with doctors for medical advice. But for me personally, I find wearing comfortable clothing that's less restrictive, that if I get cold or get hot, I've got the blanket and things like that, which does help, and it's easy enough to put in my hand luggage. Now with regards to the hand luggage, I like to try and have things to hand that I know I'm going to need for the flight, whether it's a book, my noise cancelling headphones, a bottle of water, any device that I might have. I like to have with me, in front of me, in the kind of like the little kind of section in front of your seat. The rest of the stuff that I may not need or is nice to have, I will put in my main checked-in luggage, and also in my hand luggage I'll put it in there in the overhead, so it saves me going up and down, like disrupting people around me, especially if it's a night flight. I've got all the things that I really need to hand that I can put under my seat, and it's just, you know, it's the experience for everyone else around you, and also just saves you going up all the time trying to kind of get the things in the overhead and bring them down. Also as well, with regards to the clothing, I do think the type of footwear you're wearing plays a part. Again, because my feet swell up, I think it's important to be able to not be restricted. I don't wear just socks, and I don't have bare feet. Again, for hygiene reasons, I don't think that's a particularly nice experience for me or people around me. Again, I think it's important that if you're planning on having a transit or a layover, to have a change of clothing, change of underwear. Again, that's just in case your main luggage gets lost. But again, for me, I've got my AirTag so I can track my luggage. But if that does happen and you've got a change of clothing, you know you're good. And a few extra days of maybe underwear would be, you know, handy. And then maybe packing a small toothbrush or a mouthwash, again, for the long haul flight and in between meals. I like to also schedule, when I know I've got my special meal arriving, quite often because you'll be getting it first, I like to be able to go to the bathroom beforehand, before everyone else goes, so there's less queuing, less disruption, and you've already dealt with it. And then when they come to have their food, either before or after the food, you've usually got quite a long queue of people trying to go to the toilet. So if you wanted to try and do that, it just saves a lot of queuing and a lot of hassle, and it's just a nicer experience in my opinion. One thing that I do that my friends laugh at, because I'm a wee bit organised, shall we say, I will go on the plane, and when you've got your kind of selection of entertainment and media in front of you, I will go through and have like a mixture of movies and TV shows. I will go in advance and I will select what I want to my list, so then when I'm on my flight I don't have to do endless scrolling, because I already picked the movies and things that I actually want to watch, and I'll just go on my list and I will pick things that I want. Just makes it a lot easier. And most of the time when you're on a flight, before you've even took off, there's a lot of waiting around, and in that time, that's when I select the things that I want. It's just super handy, but again, my friends think I'm nuts, but it works for me. Then also any kind of pampering items. So I like to take a face mask that I can kind of put in that moisturises my face, but also the actual sleep masks to help me block out any kind of distractions or light actually on the plane. I find that really, really handy. And again, with the hydration, I bring eye drops, and I find they're really, really good. So to stop to hydrate, you know, dehydrate any kind of on my face and my eyes. I won't wear my contact lenses when I'm on a flight because of that, because it really dries my eyes out. I'll always wear my glasses, and then I'll make sure I take a case for my glasses so I don't get them damaged, and I'll put them in front of the seat. So if I do want to go to sleep, that they're safely tucked away. Then things like if you're on your flight and you want to get used to the time zone that you're arriving into, I will always make sure that I change my iPhone to actually the time zone that I'm going to, not the old time zone, so I can get used to what time it is where I'm going to be, and that just helps as well. If you do find you struggle with sleep, I think doing a little playlist in advance that you can play on the flight that's relaxing music can be really helpful, as well as obviously the eye masks. And also, I do know, I've not done it myself, but I do know from friends that take melatonin that can help you sleep if you do struggle. I do find I sleep pretty well on flights, but I think if I didn't, I think that would be quite useful. Again, on the devices and things in front of you, I like to take cleansing wipes and bacterial wipes, just because it's easy and just handy to have, so you're not getting up all the time. When I first arrive on my flight into my seat, I will always go over my table and the screen and the armrests with antibacterial wipes, so we're all good, especially in the current climate. I think it's really important. And then just cleansing wipes as well, just to help with my hands. I think it's really handy. But then you've also got things like, if you're wanting to just freshen up, maybe you've just come awake and you've got some food that's arriving and you want just a bit of a refresh, I really, really love face mists. So you could just take your eye mask off, take my glasses off, just a quick spritz with face mask, with a face mist. Super nice, quickly refreshing. It kind of invigorates you, and just having a little one in my hand luggage is brilliant. So also while you're during your flight, I do think as well, if you've got a transit or a layover, if you're doing quite a long distance, I think it's really handy not just to have a change of clothing, but also I like to pre-book a shower. So for example, if I go via Singapore Airlines, the Singapore airport, you can pay, I think it's quite a small amount, usually maybe $20 or something, and they provide the towels or the kind of hair products, so you don't have to you know, have like a wet towel with you for the rest of the flight. You just go there, pay the money, and you get a time slot. And usually the showers are gorgeous, really, really lovely. And I'll go and I will always book a shower. Helps me to freshen up. Again, just kind of, it's always nice change of clothing, nice shower. And also, if I've got time, I will also book a massage as well within the transit lounge. And I do think a lot of airports do accommodate for this now, certainly in Europe and when I've gone via Asia. I'm not so much sure about the US, but I think just checking out the airport you're going to be transiting, if you've got enough time, that's really important, because if you haven't got enough time, it's just going to be too stressful for you. And just having a quick wash of your face will probably be sufficient. But for me, I like to have a transit that's maybe 2 hours. I've got enough time, my luggage has already been checked in all the way to my end destination, so it means I don't have to rush, have a lovely shower, wash my hair, have a massage. It's brilliant. And I will be doing an upcoming video about Singapore Airlines and their airport, which for me is one of my favourite airports. There's so much to do there. So for the next section is after the flight. Now, depending on what time you land in your end destination when you get home, whether it's day or night, quite often that actually I consider when I'm doing my prep and organising my flights. I do like to make sure when I arrive back into my end destination, if it's in the daytime, my aim is that I like to try and, let's say if I land at midday, I like to make sure to try and stay up as long as I can, so my body understands it's day, not night. So maybe I've come from overseas and it's the evening over there and I just want to sleep. I want to make sure that I stay up. So if I land at, let's say, lunchtime, I will make sure I keep active during that day. I might have a shower to freshen up. Most likely I'll have a shower after a long haul flight for sure, but it does help to refresh, wash my hair, go for a walk, get my body out in daylight with a bit of the sun on me. That then's making my brain understand that it's daytime, it's not evening. But I do like to try and keep active. Also trying to eat food, you know, maybe try and force my body to have kind of lunch, even though it may not be, you know, I may not be hungry, but it's trying to get your body to, in a sense, reset back to what is now your original home kind of time zone. So if it is in the day, I'll go for a walk, freshen up, and I'll usually try and stay awake to, let's say, 7 or 8 in the evening if I can. So it's a bit of an endurance test. It can be really difficult that first 24 hours when you get back, but if you can kind of get that sorted out, I do think it helps with your jet lag for sure, and also the remaining other days you've got, so maybe the next 3 or 4 days after you get back from overseas. I think it puts you in a good kind of situation. And I've been doing it for about 20 years now, and I do find it, that first day can be quite exhausting, but if I can stay up until around 7 or 8 o'clock, you don't need to stay up until midnight, you just need to stay up until it's our evening and then go to sleep. And then also I will always have an eye mask that I put on, like a sleep mask. I've got various ones I can link in the description bar below. It blocks out all the distractions, it keeps your brain kind of ready in sleep mode, and I do find that really, really helps. But that first 24 hours when you first land is key to get yourself ready. Again, I will hydrate, really, really important to hydrate. I often find I'm dehydrated after the flights because there's usually multiple flights to get back to the UK. So it's quite taxing on your body. Also, if I've got vitamins, I'll take vitamin C tablets. I do find that helps, and again, you're kind of getting your body back into, you know, coming off the flight. Also as well, again with the dehydration, I do find my skin gets very dry. So if I've had a shower, I like to moisturize all my body and just make sure I'm kind of, in a sense, pampering it and knowing it's back home and I can kind of just relax. I do think all of those things do play a part in what we call jet lag, because your body just doesn't know what's going on. And I think if you can try and help with those elements, it does, bit by bit, take the edge off the jet lag, in my opinion, in my personal experience. But let me know what you guys think, because if you've got any of these tips, any other new tips would be great. anything that you do that you kind of swear by. Very much the time that I've been travelling, these things really do work for me. I just have to be kind of quite clever about it and do a bit of preparation. But I hope these ideas and recommendations helped you when you've got your next long haul flight. But thanks ever so much for watching, and if you wanted to subscribe, just click the subscription button below, and also if you wanted to comment on what you think and any other tips that you would recommend me, because that would be brilliant. But thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.